Ikemoto has already told us how Boruto will reverse omnipotence. In fact, he has already given us two methods that are both equally as possible, but to me, one reigns supreme. The first method is the Sasuke method, and the second is the Ida method. Before we jump in, like and hype up this video cause I'm sure that you will enjoy it. So let's jump in, and we'll start off by discussing the Sasuke method. And to me, this is the method that I believe is the most likely to take place, but it will take the most time and have some serious consequences for Kawaki. We all know what happened. Ida had a strong desire to help Kawaki, who was in a state of desperation where he wanted to take out Boruto because of Momoshiki and the threat that he represents to Naruto's life, so Ida granted his wish for his and Boruto's roles to be reversed, without people in the village interfering. This caused people to attribute all of Kawaki's actions to Boruto and Boruto's actions to Kawaki. Essentially, Kawaki became Boruto and Boruto became Kawaki. Their roles were reversed. But some major flaws occurred, which has opened up a door to the entire situation being reversed. The first flaw is the fact that Kawaki lied about the death of Naruto, meaning that his lie is not attached to omnipotence, which means that it can be debunked. But this is not the biggest flaw. The biggest flaw is the fact that before omnipotence was casted, Kawaki had never done anything that could actually be considered evil. Which means that after omnipotence was casted, Boruto didn't do anything evil either. The only thing that people are mad at Boruto for, whom they see as Kawaki, is the fact that they believe that he killed Naruto, the Hokage. And you can definitely argue with me that sealing Naruto is an act that could still be viewed as wrong, but I wouldn't call it an evil act that people wouldn't understand. We saw in the Land of Wind that Shinki did something quite similar, but I don't think anybody viewed it as evil. So because Naruto is actually still alive, there is a way to debunk that lie of Naruto being dead. Meaning that at the end of the day, the way omnipotence will be reversed is by the decisions that Boruto decides to take himself, and the actions that Kawaki takes in opposition. This is exactly what Sasuke describes in the last chapter of the Boruto series, as he says this to Boruto. Naruto, he also had nothing, just like the current you, and was shunned by the village, but he became Hokage by proving himself through his own actions. And what Sasuke says next here reveals exactly how Boruto will reverse omnipotence. If you truly are his son, as you say you are, then show us just like he did. This is how Sasuke believes that Boruto will reverse omnipotence by his own individual actions. Sasuke's words are so powerful that it scares Momoshiki himself, which is why he gave up on taking Boruto's body at that specific point. Because this conversation ultimately tells us that identity is not an origin, it is simply a response. Let me explain. We all know that Naruto started off his series with nothing and was shunned by everyone in the village over something that he simply had no control of. The fact that the Nine Tails was sealed inside his body. Just like Boruto has no control over the fact that omnipotence was casted. And this also mirrors how Kawaki saw himself before omnipotence was casted. But the emphasis that Sasuke draws in this conversation isn't on the suffering itself. It is on what Naruto did as a response. This means that suffering is not what defines who we are. It is the response to that suffering that defines us. This ultimately means to me that Kawaki and Boruto will slowly start to shift back to their original positions before omnipotence was casted. Because Kawaki, regardless of omnipotence, is the same Kawaki as before. And Boruto will reverse omnipotence as he still is the same Boruto as he was before. Although we clearly see in the timeskip that he is much cooler and a more balanced individual, but just looking at this writing that Ikemoto has set up, you can't tell me that Ikemoto is in peak and a respectable writer. And we can clearly see how this is slowly starting to take shape. We see that Mitsuki at the start of the timeskip is quite confused. He lost the radiance of his son. He lost his trust in Kawaki. And we see that Boruto ends up regaining Mitsuki's trust to the point where he saves Boruto, putting his position as a Leaf Shinobi at risk, which led to him being interrogated in these recent chapters. It is all because of the fact of who Boruto is. Boruto is truly his son. This is why Boruto's current actions are so important, and why he cannot fall under the same ideology and identity of Kashin Koji, as if he does, he will stop being Boruto, and thus if he stops being Boruto, then he can no longer reverse omnipotence. In the next few chapters, we will start to see Boruto act differently, following his own path and enduring the consequences that come along with it. That's why I believe that Boruto will save Kobu's life regardless of what Kashin Koji believes to be right. Because at the end of the day, Boruto is still a shinobi and must follow his path. Ikemoto has already foreshadowed to us that Boruto knows that something fishy and weird is going on. This was showcased in the latest chapter, as Boruto heard the last few words that Kashin Koji muttered to Shikamaru before going radio silent. Shikamaru asked Kashin Koji if he had a plan, and Kashin Koji says something like that. And guess what Ikemoto does next? He shows us Boruto to let us know that Boruto is hearing everything that is taking place. And to make this even more clear, Kashin Koji is also heard telling Inogen to cut the transcription to everyone else. Boruto, especially with what happened in the last arc in the Land of Wind, he is already on guard with Kashin Koji. We can already see the rift in their relationship at the beginning of this arc. So this moment has already started to ring Boruto's alarm bells. So Boruto, who can now use the Byakugan to see everything that is happening in the Leaf Village, he will be keen to figure out what exactly is happening to Kobu. And when he does, he will not be able to stand still and watch what is happening. That is not in Boruto's character to do something like that. What Boruto will do instead is follow his Nendo way and save an innocent life regardless of the consequences. Although this decision will have ramifications, on the other hand, it will be another example of Boruto's identity, and it will change the way that some people start to view Boruto. What I am saying is not that Boruto's actions will physically change omnipotence. No, we know that Boruto doesn't have the power to do so. What I am saying instead is that Boruto's actions will change the current feeling and perception that people have of Boruto. He will remain Kawaki in their eyes, but they will see Kawaki, who is actually Boruto, as somebody quite different from what the rumors have painted him out to be. And Kawaki, on the other hand, if he doesn't change and doesn't develop, it will cause people to view Boruto, who they see as Kawaki, as actually the true villain, the cruel person. And Boruto's actions are slowly confirming that. The way he talks to the shinobi guards, complimenting them multiple times. We see this when he is captured, telling them that it's not their fault. We see them when he is captured again, and Boruto ends up escaping. He compliments the shinobi for still being able to stand after touching Boruto's sword. But Kawaki, on the contrast, we see his interaction with the police force. He grabs them by the back, wiggles them around to take out Code's claw marks, doesn't treat them with any sort of respect. And Ikemoto is already foreshadowing another big moment to come, and that big moment is when Boruto meets with Himawari. As in this chapter, Shikamaru instructed Boruto that when he finishes with his sector, he should go up and meet with Team 10. It only took Mitsuki one simple conversation to tell that something wasn't right, and that Boruto indeed was his true son all along. It might not be as fast for Team 10, but for Himawari herself, it will be something that she is highly likely to notice in just one simple conversation. She already had the feeling that Boruto did not kill their parents, and that they are still alive somewhere out there. And if Kurama reveals some information due to the fact that there is a huge possibility that he is not affected by omnipotence, then she, just like many other characters in the series, like Shikamaru and Amato, she might be able to fully snap out of omnipotence. However, this will not break omnipotence. I say this again, omnipotence cannot be broken. People will still see Kawaki as Boruto and Boruto as Kawaki, but what it will do is simply change how they are perceived in the first place. But there's actually one method for omnipotence to be stopped and reversed. And it is the most dangerous method, but it is truly the only method that can fully restore things to how they used to be. And that is the Ida method, where she would cast omnipotence again and attempts to right the wrongs. However, there are a few problems with this taking place. The first one being that she can't control omnipotence, and even if she could, why would she do that for Boruto? As it would ruin Kawaki's position in the village if he is exposed. And we know that Ida, regardless of the way that Kawaki ends up treating her, she has a lot of love for Kawaki. But a counter to that people bring up is this strong belief that people now have, and I'm quite curious to hear your personal take to this, as I'm personally not fully convinced at the moment, but the theory is that Ida will fall in love with Boruto. And just like she had a strong desire to save Kawaki at the time, she will have a strong desire to save Boruto and revert omnipotence. The main problem I have with this is the fact that Boruto himself said that he doesn't care about reversing omnipotence, so I don't think he will do anything for their roles to be reversed. Kawaki had the desire for their roles to be reversed, but I don't think Boruto will have that same desire. But still, this is a pretty interesting theory, so I'm very curious to hear your personal thoughts. However, the one thing we have not discussed is the possibility of omnipotence not being reversed. And to find out why that actually is a possibility, watch this video right here.